Ukraine is so much safer.
It's like nothing gonna happen to you. Like at 3 at night, you go drunk from the bar or something like that. Nothing, you know. Yeah. I check my hotel and I see it's like in the middle of Krakolandia.
That's why it was so cheap. One of my friends, he went there and he bought an old Chinese motorcycle with a sidecar. Oh, and he did a trip around
with the dog.
No, with a girlfriend. Orest.
Yep.
Orest Zub.
Correct.
Did I say it right? Okay. Very, very happy that you're here. Very happy that you came to visit Miami.
My pleasure.
And agreed to do this podcast. And I think it's going to be great because you have been to America a lot. And I have been to Ukraine a lot.
Okay.
You know, so we both have some opinions and impressions, and I want to explore that a little bit. But first, I noticed that you recently posted on Facebook about your travels and what you are trying to do. That is a little bit of a lifestyle tone to it. So can you tell, what are you doing?
Okay, so I'm Orest, yes, I'm from Ukraine. My native city is Lviv, which is the largest city in western Ukraine. You've probably been there. And since actually my early times, I'm traveling pretty often and a lot. My parents are from they met each other in the travel club in the university, still when it used to be part of Soviet Union in Ukraine. I was born in late 80s. But grew up in independent Ukraine, obviously, already. Yeah. And even in the 90s, when, you know, it's like a developing country, people start accumulating some basic wealth, capitalism is there. And my parents, as many other families, lost everything in the 1991, when Ukraine became independent, Soviet Union collapsed, and all the savings of people just evaporated.
Because the currency collapsed.
The ruble, the currency, you know, they had all the savings in these governmental banks that stopped existing afterwards. So basically, I would say like almost every family, like 90% of families lost all their savings overnight. At the same time, nobody became homeless, and nobody also there are almost no homeless people in Ukraine, and you probably noticed this as well.
Yeah, very little.
Because everybody got their apartments and property for free from the government where they used to live. So even now, if there is let's say somebody who is not earning enough to get a new property, still he can inherit this from the grandfather or some aunt and so on, right? So this condition is fine. But anyway, so when in the developing society people start earning first money, they do some business and so on, usually what happened if you travel to other, like they say, third world countries, they try to show off a little bit, or at least buy some stuff that show their status, like getting a car, you know, or some expensive clothes, or at least make a good renovation inside your apartment and so on. But my parents, somehow they got the idea that it's important to invest first of all into development, into education, and even since secondary school, me being a guy from Ukraine started traveling international camps where I was studying English language. So it was Poland, Slovakia. In 1999, I was even enrolled in the summer camp in the United Kingdom. And that actually just made a big footprint on my idea of the world. The curiosity was always developing more and more. From school age, I started getting connections with other people around the world.
Right. And
in the university times, I was studying law. I participated in many different international student events. So it could be academic program where you supply on some essay and you get your travel costs covered to travel to the conference in Prague, for example, you know. Then there are different student exchange programs and so on. So basically by the time of finishing university, I visited already over 30 countries, mostly in Europe. And once I graduated, I decided, okay, I'm not going to step and do the job like everybody else, but I wanted to explore more. And I did a couple of internships abroad, like in Poland, Croatia, and India, in the legal area. Which was for me kind of enough to realize that I don't want to be a lawyer after graduating from the law school, you know. And that was like pretty bold statement, because can you imagine, like, you have a really prestigious education from the well-being family, your career is kind of is already like about to open to be successful, and I am telling everybody and to myself, like, okay, like legal job is not for me. Of course, like, my parents were very disappointed, so I started looking for what can I do, how can I apply my knowledge and my let's say things what I know already about the world then. And I started blogging. I'm talking about 2011, so it's like pretty early stage.
The blogging was beginning to...
It was kind of,
It was beginning to be very popular.
Just that time. But in Ukraine, it was just like the beginning. And I started all my blogging since like it's a media, I started this doing in Ukrainian language, which is like super, super unconventional for those time, you know, because most of the online content was usually dominated by Russian-speaking market. So I started to go against the flow. Many people were telling me, Orest, you're never going to be successful in this, it's not going to work. But eventually I started with blogging, and then it evolved into like other channels, social media, YouTube, and at the moment, this is my full-time work. So basically for the last 10 years, I am present online. My business is online membership communities for small business owners. We help them to promote their products and services online. This is my professional way. On the medium level, I do just like regular blogging about travel, about self-development, and about business. And about 20% of what I do comes from advertisement. So since I have the audience of over 100,000 people, just companies and so on.
And now this is in Ukrainian.
It's all in Ukrainian language, correct? So that's like really interesting.
Yeah, but that doesn't that make you a big fish in a small pond? So you probably dominate that market.
No, I never thought about dominating the market. And
like, are there many others? I don't think so.
Oh, there are many. Like when I was starting, there were like not many people doing it in Ukrainian language. But since 2014, when Russia invaded Ukraine, there was like a wave of Ukrainian renaissance, you know, and many people started to switch to Ukrainian language, and many companies, many products, many online projects started to...
I have friends there that they refuse to speak Russian. Like they speak either Ukrainian, or if it is with a foreigner, then they switch to English, but they don't want to speak Russian.
So in my case, based on what I already told, many of my activities, what I do, are not just like business oriented. I am also patriotic, I could say. I want Ukraine to be like the integrated like member of the Western society, And I do like a lot of also like enlightening work in Ukraine with my travels. I show how is the world, what are better parts, what are worse parts in different countries. So, and considering your question, like, do you feel like a big fish in a small pond? Definitely not, because since I believe my content is higher than the average on the intellectual level, it doesn't reach the wide audience, right? So it's mostly more narrow. So it's people who like to travel, people who like to grow, who think. It's not just entertaining content, right? So that's why the percentage of possible reach is much smaller if we are talking about the numbers in general.
I understand. So you have a certain... we like to say you have a certain voice.
Definitely.
That narrows your audience
One of my friends told...
But then it's more consistent. Right?
It's consistent, is niche oriented, and I also like to invest my time and efforts into the evergreen content. So in order to create something once, it will serve me for decades, and that's basically what's happening. Some of my posts from 2011 are still pretty popular online. Some of my videos from 2015, 16, they are still getting more and more views and feedbacks. And one of my friends just once told, like, Orest, you are well known you are widely known in the narrow circles.
Yeah, right.
So narrow circles here are topics of travel. So I could say I am one of the pioneers of independent travel in Ukraine, because so far I visited over 120 countries. And of people my age, there are not many of those who travel that actively as I do. Also, I started traveling and writing about this, about different cultures, people, and even the techniques to travel, to get like a cheap ticket or how to do this or that. Back in the like 2011, 2012, when Ukrainians almost didn't travel, like we need to have visa to visit nearby Poland, which is 40 minutes drive from my city. After 2014, things have changed, so the new airlines came to Ukraine. Our passport is getting much stronger and stronger every year.
Yeah, I noticed many of my friends were very happy when they changed it. Like, what year they changed that? Now you can go to Europe.
Oh yeah, like Ukrainian passport is in the top 30 now.
Yeah, but they removed the visa thing while I was there. I think
in 2016,
right?
Correct.
Yeah,
so it's just one of the most common questions 7-8 years ago was, Orest, how do you travel? Because you need visas everywhere, you know? So that was just a regular thing. Now people don't ask these questions because it became just more easier to travel.
It's getting better, well, it got better and then it got worse again because of COVID. Now Europe is super restricted. But yeah, the country has matured. It's very clear.
Absolutely. Also,
it was already a big power in terms of industry and agriculture and things like that. And technology, but now many times when I talk to people about, I'm going to be setting up shop in Ukraine because I want to have software developers working for me there, people find that absolutely normal. It's like it's not even a surprise. Oh yeah, Ukraine, I know. There are a lot of great engineering there.
In my city, with a population of around 1 million people within metropolitan area of Lviv, if we can tell metropolitan area. Anyway, Lviv with the suburbs.
It's a nice, it's a nice big city.
Yeah, it's a nice big city, and like there are like 40,000 people engaged in the IT sector. So like we're talking about 4% of population, which really makes an impact in the local economy. So
yes, I noticed that software development seems to be really big, but it's not just the 4%. If you have 4% of the population working directly on it, that is another 4 or 5% of the population working indirectly, tier 1 suppliers, people serving, not in IT, but serving the IT companies.
Absolutely.
From the janitor to the paper supplier, it's probably more than 10% of the city.
Every employee in the IT gives like at least 3 other jobs around it. So
and they are used to European salaries there because it's so westernized, and so many of those companies serve other countries.
That's true.
That the salaries are very high.
Yes. So it's like people joke that people who work in IT is like a separated caste.
It is. Like I hang out with bikers, right? A lot, and a lot of them have American, Harley Davidsons, or they have Japanese motorcycles, sophisticated, nice, or BMWs and things like that. Of all of them that I can remember, they are either in IT or they are politicians.
Okay.
Only those two.
Okay. Maybe some business owners.
But in IT. Some of them are business owners, but IT related, So it's very interesting how because they're the only people that can afford an imported motorcycle, right? It's very expensive, and it was funny how you see that, but then in Ukraine, you don't have the kind of separation that we have here. I'll tell you the greatest difference between the biker culture there and the biker culture here. Over there, you guys have clubs. You know, you have the biker clubs. In America, the biker clubs do the best they can to not talk to each other and to not touch, to not be side by side. They try to not connect at all. Over there, they party together. They go to visit their other, each other's festivals. They are friends. Some people are in more than one club. Like it's very friendly among the clubs.
Oh,
right?
What about international level? Because
but also in Ukraine, you see the rich biker with the Harley Davidson riding with the poor biker with the Ural. And they ride side by side.
Okay.
They are side by side on the column, like they say. When they are riding together, they are camping next to each other. They are drinking together. In US, we tend to separate that a lot. It's Harley Davidsons here. There is also a predominance of ethnicity in one kind of motorcycle and then a different in another kind of motorcycle. We tend to isolate.
Oh wow!
We are friendly in the sense that we tend to be respectable, but sometimes you go to a party and there is a sign Harley Davidson only.
Wow!
Then I go like, fuck you! I don't go to
Which
that.
one you have? You have a
I
Honda?
have a Honda, yeah.
Honda, okay.
A Honda. But I left the Honda motorcycle group here because we had, there was this Valkyrie Owners Club and I used to ride with them. And one of our friends, one of the coolest guys in the group, he decided to sell the Valkyrie and he bought a CBR 1000, the Blackbird, right? A great motorcycle and all that. And then on the next event that we did, I noticed he's not on the guest list. And I said, what happened to him? Did he die or something? He said, no, he doesn't have a Valkyrie anymore. I said, you are going to disinvite the guy.
So materialistic.
You are going to disinvite the guy because he doesn't have the exact model of the motorcycle, but he's friends with most of us, and you are going to disinvite him for that. I said, yeah, because it's a Valkyrie club. I said, well, then remove me from the list too, because I don't give a shit about this. No, I'm not a friend of your motorcycle, And now you guys are showing who you really are.
I see.
Assholes. Because that to me, that is a fundamental failure of character.
I see, but I believe there could be let's say some formalities, yes, and some culture in this or that event. And the question is that just where do you draw this line? Because let's say it was like a motorcycle. Yeah. Okay, then there is like a sub-clubs of Honda, Royal Enfield I was driving and other clubs. And if you don't comply with these formalities, then you're like not part of the club. So it depends.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah. And I think you have to draw the line.
Yeah.
I draw the line at if your club is if the membership, the participation in your club is based on the kind of equipment you have, I don't care to be part of it.
Okay.
To me, it's a useless club. Create a club for those that wear a helmet and another for those that don't wear a helmet. I don't give a shit. I will not participate in either. Because to me, it's all silly.
I see, but you've been to Ukraine, right? You probably noticed this Zaporozhets, the Ukrainian Soviet car produced in Zaporizhia. This is like the cheapest possible version. And there are these clubs of Zaporozhets owners, right? And in my opinion, if it was Zaporozhets owner and then suddenly the guy sells his Zaporozhets and he buys Lada, he cannot be part of Zaporozhets club anymore.
Let me make it more clear. That is, let's say, Zaporozhno, that's how you say, right? Okay, Zaporozhets club. That club is to talk about that kind of equipment, all right? Yeah. They are not traveling together, staying in the same hotels together. They are not friends on the weekends. That doesn't mean that they have much more connection than that equipment. Like there used to be Apple computer owner clubs during the time that very few people had Apples. So I understand that is about that thing. we were in a group, in a club that supposedly we were traveling together. We were having barbecues together. You know, we were dating people from the same club. It was a club that promoted friendship and promoted, you know, enjoying those motorcycles together and going to the events and all that. And then I thought, the friendship part is amazing. You know, that's how I relate to my friends in Ukraine. You know, we travel together. We don't look at, nobody ever says, oh no, but your bike is not this brand. You cannot come. Nobody ever said to me, oh no, but you don't speak the language, you know, or you are not Ukrainian. No, I was absolutely welcome all the time. So when you go to a biker event in America, you have a lot of these separations. These separations are invisible. They are not physical.
Yeah.
But you see that it's in the conversations, it's on how people treat you in this club, on that bar, on that campsite. It's not consistent. Then I go to Tarasov Agora, and it's like everybody together. Of course you have cliques and you have people that are friends, that they are closer to each other, but those lines don't exist that much, or they barely exist at all.
Okay.
That are only so I would say it's a more humane, more friendly biker culture. Also in US,
because, sorry for interrupting you, this is a podcast, right? We have a live conversation, so
it's two friends.
Maybe because since every industry is like growing, it starts getting subgroups and specializations. Maybe because the bike culture is much more developed in the US than in Ukraine. That's why, because of the volume of it, people still try to keep together in Ukraine. And here you have all these stages, leagues, associations, and so on.
You are absolutely correct. For example, that is an event they do at that mall in Kiev called the Sky Mall. And they do an event there every year that is promoted by Harley Davidson.
Okay.
And they have two sections, the Harley Davidson only and everybody else. You know, and the first time I went there and I saw that, I thought, shit, it's coming. It's coming. The Harley Davidson bar. You know, I like the bike. You know, don't get me wrong. I think it's just another shitty, expensive bike, just like most bikes. It's not especially bad or great, but their marketing, I think their marketing is putrid.
Okay.
Okay, it's terrible. It's terrible the way they do things, and yes, I said it. But there is another factor that one of my friends in Ukraine said, and I think he's right. He said, when you go to America and you're traveling and your bike breaks down, all you need to have is a membership in one of these service clubs, and you do a phone call and a truck will show up and they will take your motorcycle to a dealer, they will fix it. If you break anything in any kind of accident, big or small, you just pay a fee and the insurance will take care of it. There are services and there are shops everywhere, and that is services to take care of you. If you have an accident, the ambulance will be there in minutes. It will be really quick. Here you have an accident, the ambulance will show up tomorrow. Like it's not. He said, if you call a pizza, the pizza will arrive first, right? So he said, here we don't have the service truck, we don't have the membership clubs, we don't have the dealers everywhere. You need to want to buy certain kinds of motorcycle, there will be one dealer in the country. So they created that system called Motor Help. And there are many bikers that gave me their phone number and they said, if you break down,
call me
anywhere in Ukraine, you call me. Because if I'm not close enough, I'll call someone that will be nearby. And so he said, because we don't have all that structure, we need to help each other. But then because we had to help each other, we became very good at it, right? We became very good. And in fact, in Ukraine, if you stop your motorcycle on the side of the road, other bikers stop just to ask, so are you okay?
Yeah.
You know, like they automatically they assume, okay, there may be someone in need, right? Here, people will stop like 1 in 50, right? They will do it. They are, but it's not at the same proportions. The biker culture in Ukraine is more friendly.
Okay.
And more, and even if you compare with Western Europe, clearly.
Okay, I think it has the matter of this. This is the early stage.
Yeah, it's the early stage, and they need to help each other.
Yes, and also if we develop the question of my travel in the United States, I've been, this is my 6th or 7th time in the country, and last winter I spent 4 months in the United States traveling Florida, RV, across the entire state to California, Midwest. I've been to 15 states in 4 months. And one of the most memorable trips was exploring the small section of Route 66 in the central part in South Illinois and all the way to St. Louis.
Okay.
So there I studied the history a little bit, and it was interesting to see that at the early stage of the motor industry of America, there were also like clubs, they were helping each other, they were taking care by their communities with the like particular sections of this route.
They would help each other with maintenance,
which eventually became like the single mother road, right? But at the beginning it was all based on like motivation and enthusiasm of people. So I would say that more or less this is probably something like this happening in the motorcycle industry in Ukraine.
You know Douglas Adams, the guy that wrote the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He, in one of his lectures, talking about some travels he did in the 70s, and a very interesting, very long lecture. I'll put a link on this video. Douglas Adams said that he went to visit this place that is a tiny island north of Madagascar. So to get there, he had to fly on a 747 to Egypt or something, and then from there he took a 737 to Madagascar, and then there he took a smaller plane, and then a truck, and then a jeep, and then a boat to cross into the island. And it's funny that he commented the boat had a particular problem. It was full of ocean. So they had to fix it first. So he said that technology, that the history of civilization is the history of the development of sticks. We started with a simple stick, and then we got a more complicated stick, and then a more sophisticated stick to do things. And so he said, I left London with a fantastic modern stick, and then I got into the simpler and simpler ones until it was just a leaky canoe, right? But he made a comparison. He said, I left London in a certain year. Then after Egypt, I was 10 years behind. And then after in Madagascar, I was 20 years behind. When I got to the island, I could just as well be 2,000 years ago, because the technology was the same, right? I think that when you travel from Western Europe or from America or Western Europe towards the what we call the Wild East, you are traveling time. Actually, if you went to a place like Kharkiv and you just counted the modern cars and the cell phones, you wouldn't notice that you are in the 21st century. Because the place looks old, behaves old, talks old. It is Soviet Union, but it's Soviet Union with BMWs and cell phones and and Facebook. But in many ways, you are traveling in time. And I was discussing this with Mike once, our friend Mike Baum, and he said, if you go from, let's say, Germany to Ukraine. He suggested from Germany to Ukraine, and then go to Turkey, and then you go to Kazakhstan, and then you go to Afghanistan, and you will be traveling exactly about 100 to 150 years with each compounding with each step. So when you arrive in Afghanistan, you are about 800 years back.
Like in the Middle Ages back.
Yeah, you are 800 years back plus cell phones. You know, but the culture, the social divisions, the food, you know,
the way how they prepare food.
The way how they prepare food, the medicine, you know, go to a little village in some places, in some countries.
You can go to some places in Ukraine, like which are still, I don't know, like probably like there is electricity everywhere. Like it's not gonna be.
Places doesn't become modern just because you add the cell phones.
No,
right? You know, it's going to take a certain time,
but it makes a tremendous difference,
and it makes it interesting.
Yeah,
that's one of the problems of globalization, that it makes things generally better, but in terms of raising the standards for medicine and for safety and things like that. But a lot of places become the same. Like you go sometimes to an entire country and you visit 50 places in that country, and you get the impression that you saw maybe one or two that were remarkable in the sense of being different than the others. Everything else is a soup of the same thing, right?
It's much easier to install antenna and put a signal to connect to the rest of the world than to build a bridge and make the proper paved roads, right?
Yeah.
So that's why in many African countries where I've been to, you still can see people living in huts without electricity, but then in the middle of the village there is baobab, this huge tree where everybody gathers and rests in the shade of the tree, and next to the baobab there is ultra-modern station which is installed by the national corporation, and the entire village go there to charge their phones every night because otherwise they don't have electricity in their huts.
Yeah, exactly.
And these people, I mean, technically they're able to do the same stuff as we are doing, like here in Miami.
One of my friends she has or used to have an organization in Uganda taking care of kids there. And she said that she brought electricity into the village because she bought a solar panel. You know, so that's it. That was the electricity in a 20-mile radius. And I need to go on a tangent now, just because I remember this story.
Okay.
I have a friend from Benin, and he told me that when he was a kid, he had to walk a couple miles to reach the road. He had to walk on a trail to reach the road. And then the city was 20 miles away. So he would go and on the side of the road and sit and wait. And maybe a truck or a bus or a car will stop and and take him to the city. And the word they have for that is opportunity. So he said, I would go to the road and wait for an opportunity. And if I couldn't find it, I would go back home. And my parents said, oh, what happened? Didn't have an opportunity.
No opportunity to get to the town.
Yeah, so they apply the word opportunity to something convenient that happens.
Yeah.
You know, I found that
which we get for granted.
I thought that a very interesting way that the English language end up crossing over with their language there. Very interesting. So when I went to towards small places in Ukraine, and I stopped because I was riding a motorcycle. I would stop at the local little restaurant and the local little bakery and not speaking any of the local language, and usually they not speaking English. It was always very interesting, and we had to discover how to communicate and using gestures and it was so interesting. I would say, because I felt that I am in a place that is different than mine.
Okay.
Where the rules are different and a lot of things work in a different way. But then at the same time, I was such a stranger there. I was so evidently stranger that then everybody treated me like a celebrity, right? It was And I'll say, yeah, that's a thing that I took advantage of. I never tried to hide myself and try to look like a local. You know, I showed up on a motorcycle that looks like a bus, and then, you know, and I have the leather jacket and stuff, and the American flag on my head, and then everybody was so amazing
Who
to
is
me.
this
So
guy from the movie, from the TV?
I am the guy from the movie.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
I am the guy from the movie. And then, so the number of friends per hour that I made was something incredible. I have, in fact, more friends in Ukraine than I have in America, which is difficult to understand, you know, but you're in America so many years. Yeah, but when I go there, it gets crazy, you know. Like, I remember driving through Romania and literally spending a day on the road. So let's say I made 200 miles that day. And I count, wow, I made 3 friends along the way.
Yes.
You know, that we exchange information, we want to meet. Sometimes I carry plenty of tools to fix, because I know that if my bike breaks down, either I fix it or I abandon it.
Yeah. No
that is no service, right? In a lot of places that I have been to. So either you fix it or you abandon it. And then, but fixing it sometimes may mean, oh, I find a local to help,
Mechanic,
right?
and so
And they are so amazing in that sense. But then when sometimes I have a chance of helping a local, and that is when things get really crazy.
Like you open the doors.
Oh my God! Then it's like, I remember I was in southern France, and there was a guy on the side of the road trying to fix his bike, and I stopped, and he was having trouble because he didn't have a tool to unlock something on the whatever on the bike, and I had the tool.
Okay. Oh.
And I had the tool. And I said, look, here, take this. And I said, but I need to be, I had a schedule to meet someone in Marseille that afternoon. And I said, look, but I need to go. And he said, well, your tool. I said, no, you keep it, but then you give it to me in Marseille. He was going the same direction, right?
We meet in the bar tonight. You'll bring it.
That's exactly what we did. I was with my friend then in the bar, and then this guy shows up, you know, and brings me my. It's amazing what happens when you trust a stranger.
Yep.
You know, and then became friends. You know, and then I had situations like this in Serbia, in Romania, in Ukraine. The first time that I was in Ukraine, I was riding in through. I was coming from Poland, so I was going through Lutsk. Is that how you say? Lutsk and Lutsk, yes. And then Rivne. Between Lutsk and Rivne, a biker lined up with us with a big white motorcycle, and he waved and then he did like this, and then we stopped at the gas station.
Meaning like, let's pull over.
Let's pull over. Then there was a gas station. We stopped there, and then but my friend that was riding with me, she speaks relatively good Russian, and he spoke a little bit of English, but we were able to communicate. And said, oh, I saw the license plate from America. So yeah, American. And then he gave me his card. He said, I live in Kiev. Please come to visit. Be happy to have you guys there for dinner. But most of all, if you have a problem, anywhere, again, same story. Yeah. Anywhere, call me. I'll figure out, someone will help. I said, all right. He was my first Ukrainian friend.
Okay.
Right. So we went, and then I ended up meeting with him 2 or 3 days later. But that night, we were staying in the apartment of a Ukrainian couple that we met through couchsurfing. And they gave us this room to stay. And then in the middle of the night, I was thirsty, and I thought, oh, I remember I bought some beers. There are beers in the fridge. and they had this little balcony. And I thought it would be really nice to take a beer, go to the balcony, look at the city, and then I'll go back to sleep, right? But the lights were off. And on my way into the kitchen to get into to reach the refrigerator, I stumbled on something and I fell, and then they turned the light off. That's where they were sleeping. That's when I noticed, oh shit, they gave me their room. And they are sleeping in the kitchen.
Oh, wow.
They are camping.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
And I thought, and I apologized, and then I got my beer and I left. And I was so humbled by that. I thought, they are giving me the very best they have. Right? And that was a wake-up call. So I'm not in America anymore. People are not giving you a guest room. They are giving you everything they have. Right? They are all their best space. Or same friend. Later, I left the motorcycle with him, and I flew back. But the motorcycle had to stay in Kiev for 2 years because the next year I couldn't make it. So when I went back in 2014, I went back and like the next day there was this event where a lot of bikers were going to be there. And I was meeting with people and being introduced to this one and that one. And 4 different people said, oh, I know your motorcycle. I said, oh, how so? Oh, it was in my garage. And then another one, oh yeah, your bike was in my garage. That's when I discovered that because he had to give up his garage because he moved out. Then he asked a friend to keep it, but then later the friend moved and then he gave the bike to another friend to keep it. So 4 different people.
This can also mean that everybody was riding your motorcycle.
No, I'm pretty sure sure that later at some point the bike didn't even work anymore because the fuel went bad. 2 years in Ukrainian winter fucks up your bike. And then someone fixed the bike, and it was running like brand new. The guy didn't even ask me for anything. He spent a day working on it, and I know that they had to buy tubes and things and parts, and they fixed the bike for me, and they never agreed to take any money. Wow. I bought him dinner once, but never took any money. And my friend, he has a very funny way of saying this. His name is Alex. Sometimes I ask Alex, oh, how can I do this? How can I do that? And he always has a solution, right? And I say, how do you do this? And he answers always the same. I know people. He always says that, I know people. And he solves every problem, If the other day I needed a new garage, he found it. One day I needed some equipment, need to move some stuff, and he found it.
It's all about people. Yeah,
I know people. Yeah. So being in Ukraine taught me a lot.
Okay.
About how people really are and how visiting a country that is not so developed, that is still trying to walk away from the Soviet era, from a Soviet history. That taught me a lot. And one of those things, I think maybe the greatest lesson is that I used to think that I was not going to like it. The first time that I went to Europe, I was determined to stay in Western Europe. And I was not going to go east of Poland. Poland to me was already too crazy, right? Poland is super well developed now, but I was thinking that I would never cross that line east of Poland, right? And like I like to say, I used to think that it was going to be poor, disorganized, fucked up, and I would hate it. And end up being poor, disorganized, fucked up, and I love it, right? But I discovered Romania first, and then I went back, and then I went to Ukraine, and I like it so much that the same summer I went back, and then I left my motorcycle there, right? So I was thinking later, I had plenty of opinions about Eastern Europe before. And I thought, if I was so wrong about that, what else can I be wrong about? Makes you doubt a lot of what you think about other countries, right? Until you go.
Definitely.
Right? I had, for instance, I thought that I was not going to go to places like Bosnia or Croatia
Croatia is like Spain.
Croatia is amazing.
Yeah.
Bosnia was amazing.
Yes, yes.
They
I can tell you
were,
more.
they were amazing experiences.
Probably most of your listeners are Americans, right? I suppose.
It's about almost 60%.
Okay, 60%, and I might suspect that most people have a rather negative view of Iran, but Iran was one of the most exciting trips I've ever had.
I only have 4 friends that have been to Iran. Mm-hmm. All 4 say the same thing. Mm-hmm. Once you are there, it's at the airport it can be unpleasant. When you're dealing with the government, it's unpleasant. But when you're dealing with the Iranians, it's amazing.
Yep.
It's amazing. And it's the same with a country like, I would say, Brazil, for instance. Brazil is a country that I like to tell people, go, but let me tell you how to deal with it. Because it's not a simple country. But most of the complexity is dealing with the government. Most of the unpleasantness and the problems that you have in Brazil are dealing with the government, either at the airport or local government. Other than that, and of course certain cities are super violent, so I tell them how you go around that problem. It's not that difficult to avoid it.
Yeah.
So Brazil is amazing. It's amazing. I tell people you should visit at least once. You should go.
I was in Brazil. I spent a month there. Yeah,
exactly. And I tell people, go to Rio, but I'm going to explain how you move about.
Yeah.
And how you follow. You have to follow the advice of your host. Don't trust the advice of the hotel.
You know what? I was once in Rio. I visited one of the inland unpacified favelas where police doesn't go. They just stay on the entrances to the favela. I just went inside with a local guy and I seen all what you can see inside there.
You see the craziness, but there are ways to visit those places, and basically the rule is have a local that lives there, that knows the city very well, and follow the advice, because they know. They are surviving that every day. They know exactly where you can go. They will just count for the fact that you're tall and blonde, so you look like a target everywhere you go. But they will tell you exactly how to do it, and you are going to have a great time.
With Brazil, actually, I think that's one of the countries that every race, every sub-race person can be Brazilian.
Yeah, but they're not all in the same proportions. You go to Salvador and you're an exception.
Of course.
You go to Rio, you stand out. I have friends that went there, and I told them, you look like a target. So you have, listen to the advice and don't stray from that, not even a minute. If they tell you, leave the beach before sunset, you leave the beach before sunset, not 5 minutes after.
Yes.
Right?
There are rules.
Be literal about it.
I had this, because since I'm from Ukraine, I have this feeling, before I started traveling to Latin American countries, I had this feeling of complete safety. Because, in Ukraine,
Ukraine is so much safer.
It's like nothing gonna happen to you. Like at 3 at night, you go drunk from the bar or something like that. Nothing, So I was in Mexico. It was actually our first trip with my wife to Latin American country. We spent 4 months there, and once in a city, it was León. It was my first city, where we spent a month of rent because I had a local friend over there. He helped us with the apartment and everything. And on the 3rd week already, nothing happened to me. Mexico looked safe as Ukraine.
Right?
So
some areas are safer.
I see those really nice gentle hills on the outskirts of the town, and I tell to my friends look, it's such a beautiful hills. Let's go for hiking there. And my friends told me no, we usually don't do this. If you want to go, you should take a guide, and so on. And I tell them why do you need this? Look, there are hills, you're here, you just take the bus to the suburb, you climb up and you enjoy a fresh air. And eventually...
That's what you would do in Ukraine.
That's what we do, right? In Europe, you just go and walk in the mountains. So eventually I went there with another friend of mine of Ukrainian, and no Mexicans kind of shared our idea. We went there. first you have this poor neighborhood where kids play with the broken ball.
Yeah.
You play a little bit with them. You buy something from the local shop. You continue. And once we were up in the hills between these huge cactus trees, just two guys approached us with a knife, everything, and they robbed us. Yeah, so thanks God, no blood happened. Yes, but I was just like still tranquilo, give them, and they run. So then I come back down, call to my friend from the phone of my wife because they took everything from me, and tell him like, I mean, I was just robbed. Let's go to the police. He's like, Orest, like, what did you want?
That's the other bad idea.
Like, Orest, like, what did you expect? Like, I definitely didn't expect it to be robbed in the mountains, with a knife next to my stomach. And he's like, yeah, but we told you. You didn't tell me that if you go there are guys with knives getting to rob you. You told me like you should take a guide, or you usually don't do this. So you see what was my understanding, and now
you have to correct for the difference in language and the way they express it. If they say no, but in Brazil they are not going to say like that. They are going to say, "No way you are going."
No way, yeah.
No way.
That was happened to me in São Paulo, actually. Did I tell you?
No.
It's actually the story from Brazil itself. So we arrived to Salvador by cruise ship from Europe. With some precautions, had some nice time there. Then I visited Vitoria, another friend of mine, and from Vitoria we flew to São Paulo. And usually, in Europe at least, where I used to travel before, the more central you are, the better is the neighborhood.
In Europe, yeah.
Yeah. So you like, and as a tourist, as a traveler, I am interested in history. So I want to stay in the historical area of cities to see the churches, the architecture, the everything. So and usually I look for accommodation of a decent price in the city center. Yeah. So. That's what I did in São Paulo. I went on Booking, I searched the map, central location, decent prices, I booked, and I'm done. So then you arrive to the airport, you fly, and within these 2 hours of flight from Vitoria, I was reading about São Paulo, the guide. And they tell like some explanation of the neighborhood, that like most people stay around Paulista, like some people like Liberdade, some people on the outskirts, and city center is probably not the best way to spend time in São Paulo, and by all cost avoid the square between those streets, which is Cracolandia, where most people who are drugged on crack hang out.
Street are there, yeah.
I was like, let me check my hotel. I check my hotel and I see it's like in the middle of Cracolandia.
Right in the middle.
Of Cracolandia.
That's why it was so cheap.
So I tell to my wife, like, well, I'm not sure about the neighborhood we are going, but let's take a look. So we took the metro from the airport, and when we were taking the escalator up to this park, you emerge and you see people like lying down in the bush near the trees, and police everywhere armed. So since there was police, I told my wife, okay, let's just be attentive, but let's go. So we walked a couple of blocks, people were watching at us, and and we like, you've seen my wife, like blondie girl.
You both look like targets there. Yes.
Like absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, we safely walked to the hotel, checked in. The guy at the reception was pretty surprised, but like he was professional, checked us in.
He was surprised that you didn't emerge from a taxi.
Yeah, that we managed to get there, yeah. And then I called two friends of mine who are from the wealthy Jewish family living in São Paulo. And since they told me, okay, Orest, when you'll be in the hotel, just give us a call, we'll take you out for dinner, So I called them. I sent them the place where I'm staying, and they like showed up like in half an hour. And like, Orest, we are down here, please come. I'm like, whoa, so fast, okay. So I go down and they look at me like with this eyes, do you know where you're staying? I was like, yeah, I know, but it's fine. Like, look at this. Like, no, it's not fine. Go back to your room, take your stuff. We take you out of here. Yeah, that's my story of visiting Cracolandia in São Paulo.
Yes. Look, I have, in general, inside the hotel is safe, generally. But in Brazil, there is a tip for people that are going to Brazil. If everything else fails, and you end up in the middle of some riot or there is shooting around, something is going down and you don't know what to do, look around, find a taxi and jump inside of it.
Okay.
Because the taxis have a great reputation.
They know what to do.
Because that's the only thing they have is the reputation.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
So they.
So they tend to. They may scam you out of some money, but especially out of the airport.
This
out
is
of the airport. That's the worst. But they are very careful to not get hurt and not let you get hurt, because that's their reputation. That the taxi is safe. The tax is the way out.
This is the gang on itself. It's their own club.
When someone does something to the taxi drivers, they are brutal.
That's a good tip.
On their revenge.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, so they protect themselves and they protect their customer. And in many situations, sometimes you are in a place and things are deteriorating around you. Jump in a taxi and say, "Get out of here!"
Wow.
And they'll take you to somewhere else that is safe.
In Mexico, taxi drivers usually kidnap people off.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not sure. So Brazil, you have this reputation?
No. In Brazil, the taxi is the safe space.
Okay, that's a safe. Good.
But not the cops. Don't trust. First of all, unless you really need the report for the insurance because of something that was stolen from you, don't waste your time going to the cops.
Wow.
In almost anywhere in Latin America. And I would say most of Europe as well, unless you have insurance, But if you just lost your phone and some stuff, just replace that, forget it. Don't waste your time.
That was like in Leon, where I was robbed. I told my friend, "Let's go to the police." He's like, "Orest, like what police?" I told, "No, let's go." Yeah. Being so naive, so we went to the police. We told them the story, and the woman is looking at me like, "We have like 3 murders today in the morning. Like, do you want us to look for your phone, or you better do that one?"
No, but that's the part that you didn't understand. They already know who took it.
Okay.
Before you went to the cops, they already know who took it.
Okay.
And if they stumble on that guy that day, they will take it for themselves. It's not like like I have some experiences in Brazil like that. And because I lived there for 25 years, so you know stories like, oh yeah, someone steals your car, and you go to the cops, for them to find who took the car. They already know. They're just waiting for you to pay them to recover it.
But you know what? We are here visiting Miami for the art fair, and our friends, owners of Voloshin Galleries, they are like mid-30s, my age. They are the first Ukrainian gallery that has a spot on Untitled and NADA art fairs. Before coming to Miami, they were doing a few expositions in Mexico and in Guadalajara, which is the second largest city in Mexico. So they were traveling from Mexico DF city to Guadalajara, and in the airport, the girl, the wife of my friend, forgot a backpack with $4,000 in it, cash. So they found...
That's an expensive wife.
Yes. Upon arriving in Guadalajara, they figured out they forgot the backpack in the seat, like before boarding. They called...
Back in DF. Okay.
In DF. They called there. Lost and found guys and the police got the bag. She flew back. They couldn't send it. There was like a passport, some documents, and like 4,000 cash. She flew back. They gave her the bag. Up on the phone, they were asking, "What do you have inside?" So they checked the documents. He told them on the phone, "I have cash there, 4,000." She arrived back. They gave her all the bag with everything except $100.
$100.
Yeah. So somebody just took a tip, and that's it. And like, it's Mexico, so like, wow,
no, there are, of course, there are honest people, but in general, most of the time, and in some places, nearly all the time, the cops are just another game.
Okay.
They are not going to it really is just one gang.
I have also a story in India. Like in 2010, I spent 5 months in India. It was my first long extended trip outside of Europe to completely different culture. And there was a story when I was taking bus from one city to another, and I forgot my backpack in the on the bench up there in the bus. And maybe 2 hours later, I came back to the bus station. That bus went already to different city, and after 5 hours, it got back with everything I had inside. Yeah. So
what's up with these Ukrainians forgetting their luggage?
Right. Yeah. In India was a good experience. I learned how to ride a motorcycle, and for 1 month in Himalayas, I was riding the Royal Enfield. That was very, very interesting as well.
Yeah. You remind me another thing that for a little while, I always had this. For a long time, I had the dream of riding my motorcycle in Europe. But it had to be my motorcycle with the American license plate. Okay. That was the central part of that dream, that desire. And I end up doing this. But while I was doing it, I was thinking, yeah, maybe going around the world by motorcycle, kind of, you have to do some weird, itinerary, but maybe going around the world. And then I learned that going through India and going through China, forget it. You cannot do that with your own bike.
I believe in India probably you can, but China doesn't allow.
India is expensive, and China it's prohibited. Yeah, it's like thousands and thousands of dollars to be, and they make the trip absolutely unpleasant for you.
You have to follow.
You have to be on a schedule. Yeah. You need to be paying this guy to watch you and be snitching on you. So you cannot do anything out of that schedule.
No, but what you do is just arrive in China. You just buy a motorcycle there, and
but that's exactly what I don't want to do. Okay, I want to ride with my motorcycle. So I chose forget traveling around the world. Then later I was thinking, maybe just Australia. Go to Australia. And ride, but then in Australia, the logistics of bringing a motorcycle to Australia are horrible.
Okay.
Australia is one of the most difficult countries to bring your own motorcycle and ride. They make it possible, but they make it really bureaucratic and really expensive.
You know what my friend is doing? I have a friend, he's a Polish guy living in Lviv. Good friend of mine, visited many countries, and he has this Honda but touring option. This also huge. So he started from Lviv, traveled to Spain, Morocco, and then along the western coast of Africa, going down. And after a couple of weeks, when he is getting tired because it's tiring traveling in Africa, he just leaves the motorcycle somewhere, flies back. Take a rest, do some housekeeping things or what he needs, fly back, continues, leaves the motorcycle and flies back. That's what he's doing, and it's okay-ish for him.
Yeah. So Australia was already getting difficult to think about it because it's so bureaucratic and like you need to pay, you need to put a deposit of what would be the import tax if you import the bike. But that's on their definition of the value of the bike. So you have no control over that. Doesn't matter that I bought that motorcycle for $5,000, but it's worth $3,000 now. But in their opinion, it's $11,000. All right, so you need to put $11,000 in that you only get back when you leave the country with the bike.
It is called, passage de garage or
something like that. Yeah, a lot of countries have that. And then they have but then after all this crazy stupidity with the COVID thing and going completely autocratic, my opinion of Australia changed a lot. Not that I think I wouldn't have a good time, but now I think that I would only go after they are completely done with the lockdowns and all this bullshit is over, which may take years, right? And then I would go, but I would fly in, I'll bring a motorcycle, I'll just do something interesting there, and I bet there will be a lot of interesting things. One of my friends, he went there and he bought an old Chinese motorcycle with a sidecar. And he did a trip around
with the dog.
No, with a girlfriend. But the girlfriend didn't last too long. Very soon she was tired and upset. I don't want to do this. It's too bad. And then that trip didn't last.
I was in Australia when the COVID started. So in March, I visited Australia with my wife for the conference, and then we stayed there. We rented an RV. We traveled around the country. There was this huge news when the Tom Hanks got COVID. You remember?
Yeah,
it was in Brisbane. We were in Sydney. I've seen people emptying the shelves with the toilet paper in the supermarkets. And actually, my New Zealand visa is still processing for 2 years, because I was in Australia, and from Australia I want to travel to New Zealand. So I applied for a visa. And it's still processing.
They will be processing it for a long time.
We'll see. And the COVID started, and the country was becoming more and more restrictive. So we had to fly to Ukraine fast, and actually we got to Kyiv airport 2 hours before closing down the commercial airlines in the country. So it was pretty.
So there was a lot of there is a lot of reaction that in the beginning I understand. In the beginning they didn't know what to do, right? It's like, okay, we have this situation that we never had to deal with in modern times. So countries reacted in many different ways, usually in locking down and stopping travel and all that. I understand that. But none of this worked, right? It's like you can never make the argument that, but many more people would die if we didn't. I understand that point, but you have to understand that you couldn't stop it, right? So the idea of a measure of a full lockdown, you already know that it's impossible. Some countries are trying to do it, but it requires a tremendous amount of violence and authoritarianism to try to reach 100%. It's like trying to reach 100% vaccine. When you get to 70-80%, the resistance starts to get really high, because now you get into the people that really don't trust the government, or the people that have health issues that they cannot get a vaccine, or people that are not going to take it, and they are not ignorant or stupid, or they are not anti-vaccine. They are just anti this one vaccine. Most of these people were vaccinated many times. But they don't trust it, and how can you blame them if the government has been lying to us for as long as we are alive? That it's always lying about a lot of things. Then do you want 100% of the people to believe that it's absolutely everything is correct and nice and dandy this time? When there is so much money to be made. So I understand that there are doubts. I'm not against vaccine. I am vaccinated myself. I think in my case, it's a good trade-off. But I think it's incredibly arrogant to tell someone else, no, you have to take it. That's incredibly weird. It's so now some countries will keep doing this kind of thing, I think that's how life is going to be. Every year, every season, there will be a new, there will be a new variant, and then there will be new lockdown here, but then things get better, and then they don't lock down, but then things get worse because everybody's is indoors, so it will be like this. And I think that we will have to plan our trips.
We are already planning for last 2 years.
And like before, you would really take advantage of good prices and buy a ticket sometimes a month or two in advance. Now you wait for a week.
You have to be ready, flexible. But on the other hand, since 2000, when the COVID started in March 2020? 20.
Well, in some place started before, but it was called a pandemic in March.
And for first half a year, I didn't get out of Ukraine. And it was the longest time span for me not traveling abroad since I remember myself, And eventually I just thought, so I traveled around Ukraine. All around the world, the pandemic gave a big boost to internal tourism. People started to travel a lot within their countries. And then I just like ask myself, like, why am I traveling? Like, the earth is continuing to move. People continue going to school, having sex.
In some places.
The life is going, right? The life is
Going to
on.
school in some countries.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Some countries skip a year of school. Can you believe that?
Also that one. So we traveled to Turkey. Then we did Dominican Republic. And in Dominican Republic, it was just a regular travel package tour from Ukraine. Can you imagine, with the direct charter from Dominican Republic?
Right.
Yeah, and there, like we thought, okay, why would we come back to Ukraine for winter? Let's continue. So we went to Colombia, United States, 4 months here, and my previous year was very active in traveling. Yeah. So, I mean, for those who want to and who are flexible enough, traveling during COVID is fine, and in some senses it can be even more rewarding because there are less tourists around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I went to Ukraine in 2020 in July. That's the middle of the first year of the pandemic, right? And I went to a biker festival, and people at the festival were asking, "Oh, you know, you're not afraid of COVID?" I said, "Apparently, neither are you, because you're here, right?" I said, "No, I still, you know, I understand it. There is a little bit of danger, but I don't think it's a significant danger, and I don't want to stop living."
I think the biggest danger in this situation is being stuck somewhere.
Yeah. You may travel and not be able to leave. You know, that is complicated. It can put you in a very sticky situation. And I have friends that got stuck in places in Europe or now imagine people sailing. In Brazil, for instance, if you were when they locked down the marinas. You couldn't stay on your own boat in a marina, which is pretty isolated, right? Yeah. So it's one of those rules that when they create the rule, they don't have the time to think of all the exceptions, right? And they don't have any mechanism to adjust for a justifiable exception. So some people had to leave the marina. The only place to go is to a hotel. Where they are surrounded, the hotel is full, so now they are surrounded by a lot of people.
Or some special licensed hotel with $300 per night rates.
And spending a lot of money, you know, so, and they cannot leave. They couldn't sail out. Now, I understand that sometimes you design a rule and you don't have the time to look at the exceptions. But when you put on the rule that you cannot sail away alone on your boat, that's just stupid, right? That's just plain stupid. Yes, I said it. So some people got stuck in their country. Then another part of the government there noticed the blunder, and they said, okay, at least let's keep extending their visa so they are never overstaying, you know. So some people end up staying there for a year, and they figure out how to like it, and because there are good aspects to, you know, to visiting the country anyway. But like when I was in Ukraine, I noticed, wow, everybody here, they have these rules of you need to wear a mask and you need to do this and that, and people actually just pretend to follow it. You know, they are not really paying a lot of attention.
That what makes Ukraine different from the rest of European countries is that it's more free-spirited, so people don't really trust the government the way Germans do.
One of my friends called he on his comments he said, "Oh, the Ukrainians are stupid. They are not taking care." I said, "How do you call them stupid? Can't you think that they have been under 70 years of Soviet Union, and then another 20 years or 30 years, almost 30 years now of a very corrupt, very stupid government. Do you want them to trust it? Are you kidding me? Don't you have any idea of how hard it is for them to trust the government?" You know. So I understand it. If someone asks individually what I suggest to do, I suggest, take the vaccine and forget about it. You know, go on with your life. But if you don't want to, especially because you don't trust a government that fucked you over during your entire life.
Yeah, I like to look.
I understand.
I like to look at the example of Western countries. Like, for example, if there is some big decisions happening, yes, of course, it's possible to manipulate, to argue. But in general, I would say that many things in the US, in Germany, in Western Europe, they are right. In terms of healthcare, maybe some fundamental principles and so on. And so I just apply, like, instead of like trying to reinvent your own wheel, it's just possible to look on the situations where it's already done.
I think that certain governments are pretty good.
Yeah.
You look at Denmark.
Like Scandinavian countries, yes.
Denmark, the Scandinavian countries are really well managed. Other than the personal freedoms part, Germany and Austria are very well managed. But they went kind of Nazi now. They went like, okay, everybody they created 2 classes of citizenship, and 1 class of citizenship is in house arrest.
Yeah.
Don't they remember anything from 1930s? Like, didn't they do something very similar for medical reasons included? Isn't that the same stuff? I understand that it is not the same stuff from the point of view of most people.
Yeah.
But that is a pretty good size of the population of those countries that are thinking, oh shit, we are doing that again. And in my opinion, if I tell you no, if you don't trust the government on a medical decision, now you are a second-class citizen, you are going to stay at home. I don't think I would take that.
You can come to Ukraine. Welcome to Ukraine.
Yeah, go to Ukraine, go to Florida, go to... Yeah. And I think that not in any significant numbers, because it's a tiny percentage of the population, but I think that there is a lot of people that will move.
Do you know
for ideological reasons? Like I know a few that moved to Florida because they said that I had it with California.
You can see it within the US.
New York,
definitely.
Within the US, but we are very mobile, so our numbers tend to be a little bigger. But I have a friend in Austria that she told me, oh yeah, I'm going to Italy.
Yeah.
I'm going to Italy. It's just across the Alps. And over there, they don't tell me that I need to stay at home. Or, like, I have friends that left England already. I went
That's
to
the
Mexico.
beauty of the modern world. If you can travel.
Exactly, you can go. But, for some people, it's difficult. But definitely, I know many people that left California because they got exhausted. I am exhausted of the local government telling what I cannot do.
I tell you, like last winter I was traveling, so Florida is like this, right? Everything is open. Actually, like even in Ukraine, people wear masks indoors. Here, it's like 20% do, maybe. So from here we traveled by RV to California, and I was like shocked. You are in this amazing forest with the pine trees, sequoias, fresh
the
air.
The cleanest air in the possible.
And people hiking with like masks. Like, this. And if you don't have mask, she's watching at you like, mask!
Yeah, they are we call them Karens. I think that if you feel safer wearing a mask, definitely wear that.
Yeah.
But if you are on the beach alone wearing a mask, yes, I'll call you dumb. I'll say that you're dumb, but I'm not saying that you're dumb for your ideology. I'm saying you're dumb because you're not just thinking logic. No. The air outside is clean.
It's like like driving your own car, being inside and with the mask.
Your mask is dirtier than the air outside, right? So, individually, I would say, you're being lazy when it comes to thinking, or another expression that I like to use. No, he's not stupid. It's just that when he tries to think, he gets unlucky.
Okay, that's
No, but I understand. Some people they want to be told what to do, and that's the majority of the population. they want to be told, they want to be given simple rules, and they will try to follow. And then there are all these people that fall into the cracks, into the exceptions, and they suffer a lot, because they get stuck, or they have to go to a hotel. They go to a voluntarily internment camp, like they have in Australia, right? Which it's voluntarily, but it has barbed wires on the fences. Come on. The country started as a prison, doesn't have to go back to that, But other than COVID, and COVID concerns, I know you saw a lot of America. And one of my friends, he's Greek, and he sent me a message yesterday that he's in Phoenix right now, and he went to a gun show. I said, "Oh, I love that! You are going to see something you will never see in Western Europe. This is a great experience. Enjoy it, because it's so alien to him, right?" And he was trying to find a way to travel across America, but without spending a lot. End up that the best solution for him was to buy a car. And I said, okay, when you get here, we sell the car. It's he may recover the entire money because the used vehicles are selling very well. So he's seeing America in an American way, right? And I tell people, go to the national parks here.
Amazing.
Are incredible, incredible. They were closed in 2020 mostly, but now it's all open again. Most state parks are open, except in California where everything is regulated. You never know if it's open, But other than California, the country is very accessible, and it's so easy to travel here. To travel, move, you buy a vehicle.
That's amazing. That's
getting
beautiful
insurance
for travel.
is easy. It may not be super cheap, but the insurance is easy to get. The country is very accessible, and if you travel, I would say every one new state that you go to, the food is quite different. Also, it has a lot of different styles.
I like to tell to my peers back in Europe that to think of United States as Europe, not as a subcontinent, not as a single country.
I keep saying that. I say we have 50 countries.
Correct.
United, but we are 50 countries. If you cannot find at least one that you like to be in, then you are the problem. Because there are 50 different styles of living. Some are very European, like New York, or Massachusetts. You're in Massachusetts, it's like, this is 80% England.
Okay.
Right? From the names of the places, to the laws, to the rules, to the regulations, it's very English.
Wow. That's why it's called New England, the area.
Yeah, it's in the middle of New England,
But also, on another side, Europe, in the American eyes, also is not a single unit. It's a collection of different countries, cultures, and so on.
But we are used to think that way.
Okay, but many people, let's say, if an average European thinks about the United States through the corner states, like in New York, Florida, California, Texas, also like an average American views Europe through London, Paris, Rome, Barcelona, maybe Prague, but then there is so much in between.
There is so much more.
So
I like to make that comparison that you are making. I tell sometimes people come here, or they say, I know the US. I say, where have you been? I have been to New York. No, you don't know the US. You know New York, right? I will admit that you know US after you do what you did. Like, okay, I drove across. So you had to see a lot of different things. You saw the desert, you saw the little towns, you saw the rusty cars abandoned in the desert, and the people that are living on $1 a day. And you saw some big cities, like Los Angeles or Houston is enormous. Chicago. So
I drove through Phoenix during the rush hour as well, through the downtown.
Jesus, poor thing.
and you drove Route 66,
Correct.
which is a classic experience, right? You take Route 66, you get out of the highway, and you go through the parallel road that used to be 66
Unfortunately, there
before.
are not many of those sections left.
Not a lot, many of them, yeah. But when you see that, it's very interesting. Or driving through the Dakotas and visiting those big truck stops they have there, like that's a lot to learn. But you can only do it if you visit, or even better, if you drive. America is a country to drive.
It's designed
right?
for road trips.
You can visit Europe by bicycle or by train. America, you have to drive. Okay, because it gives you the most iconic view of this country, and you are going to notice the variety of points of views that we have. You see people that go from very compliant to very rebel, from very urban to very stay alone in the desert, right? I made a bunch of friends when I walked through America. I had to walk through the desert, and I met a lot of people that live there. And you look around, and there is no neighbors, that you can see.
Yeah.
They really live alone. And some of these people are very interesting. Not all of them are losers that are there just because they don't fit anywhere else. So you see a variety of lifestyles. And I think that makes this country unforgettable. It makes it also irreplaceable. It's a very...
There is no other country like the United States.
Yeah. I when I was living in other countries before, I used to think of America as the standard. Let me explain how I use this word. To me, like a company may have the headquarters and then they have their branches and stores. The headquarters is the standard, right? And you have the stores have their variations, right? I used to think that that's where the cars come from. That's America is where the aircraft come from. America is where the money comes from. All that exaggeration put in one phrase. But to me, that was the country that set the standards. And in many ways it is. We really manage the financial sector in the world. It's still in American hands.
Modern culture.
In modern culture is very influenced. Pop culture, music, we export our culture, the good and the bad of it. In that sense, America, yes, it is the standard that everybody follows. Like we say lockdown, everybody locks down. Everybody follows. But when you live here and you go to other countries, you discover that we are usually the exception. From the plugs for the electricity to the ways that we drive, to the way that we order food, a lot of things here are done this way only here.
What I see? One of the biggest differences between the United States and the rest of the world, to me, is that people in the US, outside of these big cities, they live pretty much isolated life.
Yeah.
That's what I see, and that's sad. In my opinion.
I think that I saw some statistics about loneliness.
Yeah.
Only the Scandinavians are more lonely than us.
Okay.
Yeah, we are like number 4 or 5. Yes, there is a lot of isolation here. Yeah. In some places, it's not as bad because they have their communities, right? That it can be, you have the local bikers and you have your church, and that's why church. One of the reasons that church is so important in America, because for a lot of people, it's the only place they go to meet other people, right? To socialize, and then they do a barbecue or a bingo on Sunday, and that's where they see their friends, and that's it. Yeah. The isolation is a problem here that we try to compensate with those things, But there is one thing that I like that goes hand in hand. It's like they are two sides of the same coin. Americans are very self-reliant. Americans that live out of the city.
What means self-reliant? Can you
self-reliant, that means that they tend to count on themselves to solve the problems. If the car breaks, they fix it. If if someone invades their land, they shoot it. You know, if
very
if they need
individualistic,
to,
you can.
they dig their own well, they build their own house, they do their stuff.
Yeah.
And they know how to do all those
and
things.
that comes with the history, because once the pioneers were occupying, or let's say
they were
visiting new lands,
we say expanding
new
territories.
expanding new territories. That was the way to take care of stuff.
Yeah, they had to solve everything. Yeah, the mechanic is 500 miles behind. You know, the latest cop you saw is 500 miles. You know, everything is isolated. So when you travel through, and the Midwest still has a lot of that, because it's a lot of farming and a lot of small towns. And that's why I keep saying I don't like the Midwest, but I love the Midwesterners. They are so interesting. They are very friendly, they speak slowly, and they are very self-reliant. And I love all those three things. Yeah. You know, I really
the lady where we stayed is one of those memorable experiences was in Marysville. It's a smaller town outside of Columbus, maybe half an hour drive from Columbus, Ohio.
That's where they make the Honda.
Yeah, very important in that. Correct, Marysville. This is the headquarters of Honda.
The Goldwing, Valkyrie,
headquarters of Honda. I met. I mean, every family has somebody working on the Honda factory there. And the place where we stayed there was like this, like the farm with some pieces of land, and the lady who was the owner, she's like, she dig her own hole, and she put a pool there, like not a pool, like a lake, like a really huge lake.
She made her own little pond.
But it's not like a little pond. Like this is we're talking about 100, like 200 feet. Size, you know, in diameter. So pretty impressive what she did there.
Yeah, some people do that. They rent an excavator. They learn to use it. They rent and then they learn to use it. Right?
Yes.
So here it's very interesting. It's one of the few countries where you can actually rent a truck and transport do your own moving.
I've seen this.
You can rent a truck. Almost nowhere you can do it.
You also need to know how to drive it.
No, they don't require it. A truck unless it is articulated, you don't need to have a CDL.
That would happen to me. So I told you we were driving with my wife by RV from Florida to California.
Which is kind of big.
And my RV was 34 feet long.
Yeah.
So it's a bus. Yeah. It's a full size bus. And once I arrived to the station to pick it up, they rolled it out for me. I was like, how am I going to drive? I've never drove such a huge car.
Yeah.
So eventually
they didn't even ask.
No.
They give you the keys, the papers, and the contract, and goodbye.
And it's good. Like in me, I am like driving since I'm 16 and consider myself more or less okay driver. But can you imagine, let's say, a girl like my wife, who never drew a car and just like passed the driving test exam, and she has this, like, what's she gonna do?
Yeah, it's one of the few countries where you can rent a truck, you can build a motorcycle from scratch, and register it and put it on the public roads. You can build a car from scratch, and some people do it. You don't need to be a license. There is no license.
Yeah.
You just register yourself and say, okay, I built this, and this is the car. And they do a quick look at it, and if it's not evident that it's going to self-destruct, they go like, okay, then here's the paper. Good luck, you know. And from that point on, you can get insurance and you can drive. One of the few countries in which you can, as an individual, not as a business, as an individual, you can build a boat.
Yeah. Okay.
And sail it, or you can build an airplane. That makes people's head explode in other countries. In America, you can build an airplane. The FAA comes over, they look if you did a good job, make recommendations where you need to fix anything, and then they give you the paperwork and you can fly it.
This is something what I see, like also another difference, and what fascinates me in the United States is that many people are tolerating weird stuff. So, for example, like you've seen all these Borat movies and so on, and in the latest one, which is probably worse than it, less funny than the original Borat, but still there was this like procedure when he was texting the telegraph, not the telegraph, like they do the faxing back to Kazakhstan and back and so on, and with this explanation details what he was doing, going like really nasty, you know, and the guy who was doing the faxing, he listened to all this crap and actually did the work to deliver the message. So in most countries, people would not tolerate it. It's like fuck off, you know, or just
here we complain about the erosions of freedom of speech. But in comparison, if you compare freedom of speech in America with pretty much anywhere else, we have much more here. You know, it's much more open. But I'll give you an example that is very practical about what you said. I had to print a registration for my motorcycle. And in the US, in certain states, you pay the registration and they don't send you anything. They give you a link and you open it on the browser and you print the new registration. But then when I did it the first time in Europe, every border crossing was impossible because I had to spend half an hour, not impossible, it was difficult because I had to spend half an hour explaining to a customs official that that's how we do in US, right? They wouldn't believe. So I started printing the registration in certificate paper because it's watermark and it looks very official, right? But I did it here. When I was in 2015, I was in Ukraine, and I decided to spend the winter. So I went into the next year, and I didn't have an updated registration, so I had to download it and print it. But I thought, I'm not printing in white paper. I cannot even get out of Ukraine with that. So I couldn't find the paper. Nobody sold it in Ukraine because it looks government kind of paper. It looks very official, right? People write certificates on them. But here you just go to the store and buy it. That it's nothing special, right? But a friend was going to visit me. I asked him, hey, can you bring me a batch of paper? So I had the paper, but I didn't have a laser printer in the house. So I went to a print shop in the center of Kiev. They refused to print it. No, you cannot print in this paper. I said, but it's not anything, it's American registration. I'm not printing anything. It's not illegal and it's nothing even related to your country. No, I can get in trouble. 70 years of Soviet Union. No, I'm not doing that. I went to several shops. Nobody would print in paper that had watermark.
Because it looks suspicious, and also elaborate this, you have the vaccine, right? You have the certificate of vaccine.
Yeah.
So I got my vaccine in New York, in Brighton Beach, and I was very, very surprised when the doctor just took this piece of paper and wrote with the hand, just date, number, and his signature, and gave it to me. And like, what's that?
Nobody would believe that in Europe.
So everybody's laughing at me in Ukraine because I am bringing my American vaccine and I show to them and like what's that?
What's this?
Like where did you get this? I told like the New York doctor.
They want to see that on an app.
QR code,
Guess what? Okay, now enough time passed. I can tell this. The first time that I went to Europe in 2020, I couldn't get everybody was getting tested at the same time. So the testing was taking like a week to get the result because the labs were overwhelmed. And they put the rule that you can only board your flight to Europe with a test that is less than 72 hours old, right? I thought, okay, this is not going to work. And I cannot find any place that will, because even the places that you pay for a test, they send it to the same lab, so doesn't make a difference. So I got tested a week before, and then I got the result in about a week, and then in a few hours I wrote an app that looked exactly like the lab, everything, same color, same icon, same everything, but it corrected the date to like the day before, And then I went to the airport. I said, okay, this they trust this,
Yes.
which is easier
Just fake
to
it.
fake.
Yeah.
It's easier. But then I went in, and guess what? I got into the airport in Lisbon. The first thing they do is test you again. And I said, why do you even need to be tested, right? But then I flew through. I was in and out of Europe in 2020, no problem, because I had papers to get into Sweden for work, so I could get in and out of European, but only certain airlines. Only certain airlines understood those rules well enough,
And now I think
and only certain airports. But now it's more.
people got used in Europe to this American standard of certificate.
If it is on an American passport, they know. So that's why I say we are exotic. I used to think that Australians are exotic. No, Australians are much more similar to English or to Western European. We are the weird ones. In the way that we have our bureaucracy so much less bureaucratic, and the way that things are relatively disorganized. But I like that because there are only two ways. There are two ways for sure to create a lot of troubles with the law. One is by not following it at all. And the other is by trying to follow it 100% of the time. That's where you get the other problem, right? And here we are disorganized enough that there are always these escapes, these ways to not follow it too much, right? So you have the mask, but you have to do this. But in most places, in most of the country, it's not very strict, and most people kind of leave you alone, except in California. But most people kind of leave you alone. They see you without a mask, they don't say anything. It's not, they follow the, it's not my business. Except online. Online, oh my God, you cannot be non-conformist online because online is too easy, and also you're concentrating the people that like to be judgmental and there is no cost.
So
in person they are much nicer. I have friends that I had to unfriend online, and I know that in person they are super nice. I know them in person, but online they cannot take a joke. They cannot see any nuance, or they don't have a sense of humor at all. You make a comment on something, they misinterpret that immediately, and then they attack you. I removed it all because, the Facebook doesn't. I use Facebook mostly for marketing purposes, so and to communicate with people using the messenger, right? But so I can communicate with people without them following me. That's not a problem. But the Facebook doesn't need to be a representation. Doesn't need to be a standard sample of my friends in real life. My friends in real life are much more rebel and weird than my friends online. Than you would think by looking at them on Facebook. I know a lot of people that they don't even get into social media because I'm too weird for that. And I think that you saw by driving across America. You saw how weird we can be, and how at the same time friendly and fun, and respectful. And I like to tell this when I'm talking to foreigners in the podcast. America sells a lot of violence on TV and even on social media, in the media in general, but also in movies. We give the impression that America is a very violent country, but it's not. If you actually know how to read, statistics, and especially if you have been on the ground here, traveling and meeting people and seeing how things go, you will know that America is one of the safest places to go around. Guns or no guns, city or no city. There are only a few places, very few places will be.
Couple of days ago, my curiosity brought me to Overtown. I went because since we are here visiting different art fairs, many of them are happening in Wynwood, and I stay near you, here in Little Havana. So I just thought, okay, let me just walk, and I want to do the shortcut. I did the shortcut through the Overtown. Yeah. This was okay.
No problem.
No problem. So,
nothing will happen. We used to have people that used to rob and assault the tourists. Don't worry, we'll kill them all.
Okay.
Yeah. Man, it's fantastic that you took the time to do this. I feel very honored by that, and I hope to meet you many times in the future in different places.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
I think that will help.
It was a nice meeting due to our common friend Mike.
Yes.
Mike, as I understand, he's one of the most popular guests on this show.
Mike, this is your fault.
And see you in Ukraine and see you here as well. Good luck.
Thank you so much, man.